You said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
At this point, I think, sadly, he will still likely be the nominee, and we have to defeat him. And we have to defeat those who are the election deniers, as we did in 2020 and 2022.
Yes. You see, 2020, they got to defeat. Now, wait a minute. They still claim that the 2000 election was stolen, the 2004 election was stolen, the 2016 election was stolen. I see the old commie double standard. Commie chameleon. We got another great X-post from a great American. From Ming Kealoha. Ming Kealoha sent us an X-post while we're on the air here, listening along. Right-wingers build walls to protect what's inside. Left-wingers build walls to imprison what's inside. That sums it up very succinctly, I would say. Very nice, Ming Kealoha. That's good stuff. Righties build walls to protect what's inside. Lefties build walls to imprison what's inside. To imprison who's inside. Because, the Berlin Wall. We were talking about the Berlin Wall earlier, and the commies. That was a prison. Because everyone who could leave would leave, because they're being brutalized and imprisoned by an authoritarian or totalitarian regime. And now the Democrat Party compares our wall to protect our sovereignty to the Berlin Wall, presumably knowing that it is precisely the opposite of the Berlin Wall. But truth is not their bag, baby. That's not their bag at all. That's a fact, Jack. October 10th is XX Day, Real Women Day. It's a chromosomal thing. It's science. Democrats wouldn't understand. They just harvest the organs of the third trimester sacrificial lambs. That's their thing. Womp, womp, womp. Speaking of commies, and commies killing everybody. Commies kill everybody. They murder everybody. Vlad the Impaler Putin is a communist. The New York Times actually called him a right-winger about a year ago, didn't they? Their lie is so big that Joseph Goebbels would believe it. They might have been inspired by Gurgle. I think might have been inspired by Gurgle. That's journalism at NBC. Here's the update on the communist Putin. He's a former KGB colonel and a Stasi back to East Germany and the wall, where if you tried to climb over it, they'd shoot you in the back and murder you, because that's what they do. You know how you murder 100 people? 100 million people, rather. You know how you murder 100? It's kind of like Mao Zedong. Remember Mao Zedong? The liberals love quoting this. Each march of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Each murder of 1 million people begins with the first murder. And the left murdered everybody that they could sink their claws into. Now, here's the story from CBS Fake News today. And gosh, I can't believe they have the story. Putin, he's a communist. New York Times says he's a right-winger because they lie about everything, because they're basically commies. Putin says, you remember this guy, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who was the head of the Wagner Brigade that was murdering people in Ukraine and murdering people in Africa, because, the commies send people everywhere to murder people, and they have since 1917. Really before that, but that's where the starter pistol went off, and they really got to work murdering people by the millions, by the tens of millions. Putin says, and Yevgeny Prigozhin was flying in his plane from Moscow to St. Petersburg, and his plane blew up or crashed or whatever, and everybody was killed. And there's lots of mystery surrounding it. But here's the CBS News story, and they're not alone. Everybody's reporting it. Putin says grenade fragments found in Yevgeny Prigozhin's plane crash victims' bodies, cocaine in Wagner office. Yeah, they got what was Hunter Biden there? What's up with that? Got cocaine in the White House too, And so wait a minute. There were grenade fragments found in the bodies of the people on the plane crash, including Yevgeny Prigozhin, which might suggest that someone aboard the plane detonated the grenade in a suicide attack, or there was a booby trap, more likely a booby trap aboard the airplane, and somebody opened a cabinet or the bathroom door or something, and boom, the grenade goes off, because there are a lot of ways to rig bombs in places like small airplanes. And one grenade aboard an airplane like that, a pressurized cabin and a handful of people, and boom, it's going to blow up. And there's a bit of video of the plane spiraling to Earth and crashing. But the Washington Post had the story today, too, buried in the interior of the paper where most people never get, in a little item. And lo and behold, grenade fragments, just in case there was any question as to whether, of course, you can't believe any of the news coming out of Putin's people or out of the Democrat Party, pretty much one and the same. You know, they're Russian collusion. They're colluding with the Russians all over the place. But turns out, yeah, how about that? The plane had a grenade apparently explode on board while in flight. And now it's just not a big deal. People shrug. It's not front page news or anything. It's just what commies do. They murder everybody because they're killers. They're commies. What else do? They don't make anything work. Certainly not better. They destroy, they kill, they blow stuff up. And there you go. That's it. And the digest on the world news page in the Washington Post, which is not a newspaper, 3 physicians shot to death, 1 injured in Brazil. And didn't we just have a Brazilian mass murderer captured in New Hampshire recently he was convicted of murdering 11 people in a massacre in Brazil. Then he escaped and the Biden administration waved him into the United States. And then didn't we have that Brazilian murder that lady in Pennsylvania by stabbing her 38 times in front of her 2 little girls? Yeah. That's your open border policy of the Democrat Party, making everything better. So Putin, and then Putin put it out because he wants people to know that he murdered them. And that's good for him. That's good for his reputation because he's a killer commie. You know, he wrestles bears, rides horseback shirtless, and kills everybody that gets in his way. He kills, the lady reporter that wrote a bad story about him in Moscow, was shot to death in the elevator of her apartment building. There were a number of people who have been thrown out of buildings to their deaths from high floors, which the KGB, my best girl and I were in Poland, was it 2 years ago? And we were in Dansk. And in Dansk, we went to, Lech Walesa and all that stuff, who I've met and talked to. And the KGB headquarters, top floor of a building. And they used to throw people out of the top floor of the building. Putin is a KGB guy. And occasionally in the interrogation room on the top floor, sometimes they would untie your hands and leave you in the locked room with the window open. And people would decide to throw themselves out, to kill themselves rather than wait for the commies to come back in to torture them more. Because that's what commies do. And Putin murdered these people, naturally, and the plane blew up and it crashed. And now they've found fragments of a hand grenade or multiple hand grenades in the dead bodies of the people in the plane crash and Putin's people released the information because they want credit for it. They don't see it as taking blame. There is no accountability, just like in Washington when you're a Democrat and a member of the left. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. And the Democrats, the Wall Street Journal today, Army plans major cuts to special operations forces, including Green Berets, cutting the number of U.S. Army Special Operations Forces by thousands. About 3,000 troops, 10%, cutting it by 10% from its special operations ranks. Includes, front line, pointy end of the spear trigger pullers, Green Berets, and other special forces and special operations forces, because they're not on our side. And then when we're not looking, they'll do it again next year. They want to make us less capable, right? That's what we're talking about. We didn't get to that other Democrat transgender stuff, did we? In Virginia and in California, the Democrats, your Democrats, they're not on our side. I see, speaking of being on our side, in Green Berets and Special Forces and the Democrats making us less capable militarily, which is bad news for the entire world, because all we do is go after the bad guys. Putin kills everybody. He's a commie. The left here in the United States, they would, I don't know how many, they're killing thousands of people this year. The Democrats, thousands and thousands and thousands. There'll be more than 9,000 African Americans murdered in the United States this year. But George Floyd, there have been about 25 to 30,000 African Americans murdered since George Floyd died of heart failure while he was being arrested again. And the Democrats don't care about any of them. No looting in their name. No burning police cars and police stations in their name. None of that. But I was talking about something yesterday, and I see Mark is calling from Massachusetts, Gesundheit, about some of the other Democrat schemes. Mark, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Greetings from the People's Republic of Massachusetts. Real quick before I get to my comment, local radio talk show host up here, Howie Carr, quotes you quite a bit on the radio, and he gives you the accolades that go along with it. So
does he? Howie Carr is a good man. He's a legendary talk show host, Howie Carr, in Boston, and he's a great guy. I've met him several times. I like him very much. And you say he quotes me often, but he gives me credit for it.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to steal, you might as well steal from the best, right?
That's very funny. He's a nice guy. Thank you for that. That's fun.
So, no problem at all. So the reason I was calling is I'm familiar with the Foxborough area where Gillette Stadium is, and I know that you were talking about it yesterday about some of the vets being kicked out of their hotels to make rooms for the illegal immigrants. But anybody familiar with the area down here in Gillette, there's just not a whole lot of hotels on Route 1 anywhere. South from Boston, up to north from Rhode Island. So not quite sure where these hotels you're kicking people out of from. I read a couple of stories, but they didn't mention any hotels. I didn't know if you had any insight in that, and also who you voting for the December 9th game, Army-Navy.
For the Army-Navy game, it's always a tough one. It's you kind of I mentioned yesterday, my best girl and I went to Philadelphia a few years ago for the Army-Navy game, and it's just such a great patriotic event. And I've got to say, I lean Navy. I lean Navy in these things. My father was a Navy fighter pilot. I have uncles that were Navy, World War II and beyond. I got my uncle, call him Uncle Tony, but he was really first cousin. He went to the Naval Academy and then became a CIA officer for his entire adult life. And I do tend to lean Navy. God bless the Army and West Point, of course. And if they win, then I don't cry. But I just, because of my family tree and so on, I tend to lean Navy. Also, my 10 years at the Pentagon, I had a great time with the Navy, doing all kinds of flying off of aircraft carriers and riding submarines and flying an F-18 and doing all kinds of stuff. So the Navy been very good to me. Have you ever seen a documentary called Game of Honor?
Yes. Game of Honor? No, I have not. I'm sorry. I apologize. No, I have not. It's
a documentary about the Army-Navy game and the two academies leading up to the Army-Navy game. And it just, I won't speak for you, it makes me cry. It's so great. It is just so great. Game of Honor.
As a Navy veteran myself, unfortunately, I've been priced out of the game, so I can't afford tickets. So I'll be cheering on Navy from the home court, put it that way.
That is great. You served in the Navy, huh?
Yeah, I was a corpsman, as President Obama used to call me.
You're a corpsman. That's good. Yeah, Barack Obama and his familiarity with the military. Well, God bless you. I'm going to root for Navy, but I never cry if Army wins because, it's a great American tradition, just wonderful. And I'm saluting you, Mark. I don't know the names of the hotels. I could try to look them up, but it's true. They're kicking people out of their hotel rooms by the dozens to make room for illegal aliens in the neighborhood of Foxborough, Mass. Because the Democrats say, Academy grads, we don't care. We got illegal aliens to accommodate here. Future Democrats and gang members, Mark, saluting you, my friend, saluting you. Yeah, great American tradition. Joe Biden plans to inflict the digital dollar on us, and his scheme is already underway. It's very important to understand the potential consequences here because even though they're telling us this will be great for us, that's not true. And since time is of the essence, it's a good idea to get smart on the implications of the digital dollar before it gets out of control. You can help protect your savings and your retirement from the risks of Joe Biden's digital dollar scheme by diversifying with IRAs in gold and silver because precious metals are precious metals. You get started by calling the experts at American Alternative Assets at 888-4-GOLD-20. That's 888-446-5320. Get all the guidance and smarts you want on safeguarding your retirement savings. Say no to Joe Biden's digital dollar. Call 888-4-GOLD-20. Individual results may vary. There is no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah, and then the 95-year-old Korean war vet that they kicked out of his nursing home to make room for illegal aliens in New York City because the Democrats are not on our side. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. I want to share with you what the discombobulated, brain-damaged Biden White House did yesterday having to do with the border and a border wall, which was vital and necessary and urgent yesterday morning, and then by yesterday afternoon they had changed their tune because, they're nuts. Democrats in Los Angeles in elementary schools, they're celebrating elementary schools for 4-year-olds coming out day. That's coming out as gay for 4-year-olds. With a week of LGBTQ plus lessons for all the kids in Los Angeles. They're unwell. They really are unwell. And in the United Kingdom, they're having a discussion as well about kids and believing in more than two genders. Yes. Alejandro Mayorkas is a terrible, awful, horrible government official who's given a big job to the Department of Homeland Security, which is very Orwellian from start to finish. He's securing the homeland, but he's doing the opposite of that, of course. And just night before last, day before yesterday, he said there was an immediate need for a border wall. And that freaked everybody out because that's obviously the opposite of what he and the entire Biden administration have been saying all along. But Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Thursday backtracked from the Biden administration statements made this week that cited the need to waive dozens of federal laws in order to build a border wall in South Texas. Only about 20 miles, though. It's not gonna. They're really, everything they do is a lie of one kind or another. And he yesterday said, I want to address today's reporting relating to a border wall and be absolutely clear, he said, and then he was perfectly unclear. Whenever people in Washington say, I want to be absolutely clear, they usually then say something that's perfectly unclear. He said, there is no new administration policy with respect to border walls. They're against them. They say they don't work and they never will work, and they're racist and xenophobic, and they keep out gangs and fentanyl and save lives and reduce rapes of children on the trail. But Democrats love rapes of children. That's one of their areas. they give standing ovations to Roman Polanski and to Harvey Weinstein, and Jeffrey Epstein is their man, and Bill Clinton flies on his plane and goes to his island, but, well, used to. Then he didn't kill himself in his jail cell, but never mind that. From day one, Mayorkas said, this administration has made clear that a border wall is not the answer. Well, wait a minute. Didn't you just say, he says, I want to be perfectly clear, and he said that it was very important to build a border wall, right? An immediate need, he said. And then he comes out and says, I want to be perfectly clear, and then contradicts what he had said hours earlier in an effort to be perfectly clear, because they're the left. They're not liberals. It's a different thing altogether. So a border wall is not the answer. That remains our position, and our position has never wavered, never wavered. The language in the Federal Register notice is being taken out of context and does not signify any change in policy whatsoever. It got to be because that's the thing. They say one thing one day, they say the opposite the next day, and then they tell you that there's no difference here, right? Now, what he said in a statement was, there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads in the vicinity of the border of the United States in order to prevent unlawful entries into the United States in the project areas pursuant to sections 102 subsection A and 102 subsection B of the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act of 1996. 1996, right? Was that like 27 years ago? And then they refer to that as though everybody's able to recite what was in this act of 1996. They're such lion sacks. It's just amazing. So let's get to the idiots yesterday. Let's go to the king idiot, Joseph Robinette Biden, who is, I hope, the dumbest man ever to be president of the United States. His brain, she's a broke, she's a no good. Joe Biden yesterday being asked in a quick press availability, then they shooed them out, dragged them out, Soviet style, Putin style, pulled them out of there. Don't ask any of them more questions. You will not ask the questions. We're in charge here. You will now leave. So Joe Biden yesterday being asked a question about, hey, wait a minute. Alejandro Mayorkas put out a statement saying there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers along the border. Said in the vicinity of the border. It'll probably be in Utah, They didn't say what border. That to stop illegal aliens, but they've been attacking people all along, calling everybody racist and xenophobes, and Trump is a terrible, awful person for wanting to build a wall. It's just like the Berlin Wall, except it's to keep people and drugs out rather than the Berlin Wall, which was to keep people in so they could enslave them, torture them, deprive them of their rights, and eventually murder a whole lot of them. The left. Joe Biden yesterday at the White House.
One question on the border wall. The border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what was appropriated. I can't stop that.
I can't stop that. The money's been sitting there, he says, since 2019. And they haven't used a dollar of it to build a border wall, but since that's what the Congress appropriated the money for, and they just want to spend all the money that there is, and they can only spend this on a border wall, then they've been painted into a corner, and now they have to spend the money, because they can't not spend it, on building a border wall. This is what they're telling us now, right? And it was appropriated by those terrible, awful Republicans in 2019 to secure our border and our sovereignty in the United States of America. But Biden says he had to use Trump-era funds for border wall, right? Just amazing stuff. You may remember now, he just said he asked the Republicans to redirect that funding. That's what he just said, to redirect that funding. Michael Piercy and I remembered when Joe Biden said that a guy with a voice box asked him whether he was for defunding the police. And he said he's not for defunding the police. He's for taking the money that is marked for police and redirecting it.
Surplus military equipment for law enforcement. They don't need that.
They don't need that.
The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. It's like the military invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is that...
Do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's not defunding the police. That's redirecting the funding, right? And he wanted to redirect the money that was appropriated in 2019 by the Congress for a border wall to crack and Russian hookers for Hunter Biden parties. You see, Hunter Biden says he's $10 million in debt now. Did you see this? I don't know why Joe Biden doesn't just give him $10 million and maybe student debt relief or COVID funds or something to pay his bills. And the last thing you want is an armored Humvee coming in. They're the enemy. He's anti-police up the yin-yang. And, where did we just see recently? Oh, that the Brazilian that murdered the lady by stabbing her 38 times because Joe Biden let him into the country. And so he could murder more people. He was wanted for murder in Brazil, too. Still is wanted for murder in Brazil. And when police found out where he was through various means, out in the woods being a creepy murderer and future Democrat voter, they went in with an armored vehicle. But Joe Biden does not want them to have that because the guy had a rifle that he had stolen from someone's garage. And Joe Biden wants the police to go in with, cotton T-shirts to go after the crazed murderers that the Democrats have put on the loose. No, armored. You're the enemy. Armored V. They don't need an up-armored Humvee to go in there. They're tetching. They're what? Tetching? He said they're tetching. What's with that? That's not a word, Mr. President. So a reporter back to Joe Biden at the White House yesterday said, well, the money was appropriated in 2019. We haven't used it for 2.5 years, but now it's very urgent that we use it. And then, so you're going to spend the money to build a wall, which you say is racist and xenophobic, and you said doesn't work. So a reporter said, well, let me ask about that.
Do you believe the border wall works?
No. Okay, thank you.
Then they shoo everybody out. Then they chase everybody out. Do you believe a border wall works? No, he says quite clearly. Well, and then okay, that's it, everybody out of the red. No, we're going to do this. And they shout over them and they talk over them until they leave the room because they don't want the obvious follow-up question. Why would you spend hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to build a wall that you say doesn't work? What kind of a stupid idea is that? But no. That's, okay, everybody out. That's everybody out. No more question because we can't, because they're Democrats. And lying is their thing. Alejandro Mayorkas, he yesterday was asked about this. But you just said, and here's the statement, and you said that it's urgent and pressing, and we've got presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers, right? And there it is, right? It's in writing from your office, from your department, and then. But you've said you're not going to build one more foot of wall, Joe Biden said, not one more foot. And now you say you're going to build miles of wall because you absolutely have to spend the money on this, even though you haven't for 2.5 years. And Mayorkas said this.
There is no new administration policy with respect to the border wall.
Really?
From day one, this administration has made clear that a border wall is not the answer.
It's not the answer, and it doesn't work. So we're only going to build tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars worth that won't work because that's what we do. We're Democrats. Mayorkas.
The construction project reported today was appropriated, funded during the prior administration in 2019, and the law requires the government to use these funds for this purpose.
And story after story on this does not mention the amount of money that we're talking about because the fourth estate journalism in this country is dead. It died long ago. And Mayorkas has no relationship with the truth whatsoever. He's a fundamentally dishonest man, and he should be impeached. And really, he should be in handcuffs and dragged away and thrown into maybe a mental institution, maybe something like that. We're going full Soviet, because the Democrats are going to Mallorca.
We have repeatedly asked Congress to rescind this money, but it has not done so, and we are compelled to follow the law.
Peter Doocy yesterday tried to jump in when Cringe, and I've got that coming up because and he's like, well, you didn't follow the law when the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional to pay off student debt without going through Congress. You don't pay off you don't follow the law when, they got to roll over 24 laws to build this section of border wall, and they don't care about that. Peter Doocy yesterday at the White House asked a question of Cringe about all of this, and they just play these stupid games. Listen to this idiotic Raggedy Ann non-response from Peter Doocy to Cringe.
He said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. So something changed. What?
You want us to break the law? Is that what you want? You want us to not comply with the law? You want us to not be in administrations that follow the rule of law?
You guys do this all the time. The student loan forgiveness program, you went to court to fight for that. If this is such a problem, building 20 miles of wall,
and you lost,
why not just go to court?
We went to Congress.
So you want us to break the law? Well, no, that actually has nothing to do with my question. It's a completely unrelated response. But when it comes to breaking laws, since you brought it up, you just threw another $9 billion yesterday at paying off student loans to buy votes the old-fashioned Chicago way. Just extraordinary. It is just extraordinary. And Peter Doocy didn't say anything of the kind, of course. And you want us to break the law. No, I don't want you to break the law, but you do break the law all the time. You're going to break 24 different laws to follow through with this 2019 funding that now urgently must be spent, even though you didn't touch it for 2.5 years. And this is just mental lunacy, crazy. Kamala Harris back in 2019 did a Circle Fest town hall with her friends at CNN, which is a Democrat Party front group. And, the wall was a horrible, terrible thing and racist and xenophobic back then.
This administration has decided to vilify them and to trade on them for the sake of this president's medieval vanity project called a wall. Let me be very clear. I'm not going to vote for a wall under any circumstances. So, yes, I'm all for increased border security where we need it. I am not for a wall.
Border security, but not a wall. And now we have more than 8 million people, perhaps 10 million people that have poured into the country under these people. The population of the country of Belize is about 400,000 people. So we've taken in about, 20 times the population of Belize in illegal aliens. More than 20 times. The country of Belize, the entire population times 20 has flowed into our country. And that's why Barack Obama, in his fundamental transformation of America, has already warned us that we better learn Spanish and join MS-13, protect your children. I think what will happen here, in 2019, it was $1.375 billion. So almost $1.4 billion appropriated in 2019 to build a border wall. Biden did nothing about it for 2.5 years, and now he's lying about it because that's what he does. And here's my prediction. The $1.375 billion will be spent at this late date, inexplicably, by spreading it around to Democrat donors and Biden friends who will never finish anything. And then they'll shrug and say, well, border walls don't work. And you may remember also recently that the Biden administration was auctioning off sections of border wall to who knows who. The news media didn't look into it because they're not a legitimate news media. They're third world tongue bath fluffers for the Democrat Party. But to whom did they auction off at a greatly reduced rate these sections of border wall? And what were the Biden administration and Democrat Party allies doing with their low-priced border wall sections? And I promise you this $1.375 billion will be distributed to Democrat Party friends and allies, that the border wall will not be built. It will, whatever they do, will not be effective at all. And then they'll shrug and say, well, walls don't work, which is obviously false. All right? Just a couple of those things. Now, there's a controversy because Fox News is planning on hosting a debate next week with the candidates for Speaker of the House. And Jim Jordan, Congressman Jim Jordan, is probably the front runner right now. He was on the Sean Hannity program last night on the Fox News channel. And Congressman Steve Scalise, and there are a couple of others as well. Here's Jim Jordan on, where he stands right now.
Steve Scalise is a friend of mine. It's Kevin and Steve and I. We all came in the same Congress. Steve's an American hero. But again, I think I'm better equipped to unite the conference, bring the conservatives along that I'm close to with the moderates. I've had great conversations with the moderates. Jeff Van Drew is supporting me. Jeff Van Drew was a Democrat 5 years ago. Switched parties, now a great member of our conference. He's supporting me. I think we can do that. That's what we have to do so that we can get to the real goal, which is those things we told the American people we were going to do for them.
That would be a good idea. Start passing bills as quickly as possible. Start passing bills as quickly as possible. Bills that are important to the American people. Bills that are important to all of us. I suspect, it's it's no mystery. Jim Jordan is the front runner right now. And we'll see where it goes because, Washington has become a very exciting cable television series and you never know what's going to happen next. Extraordinary stuff. But I would like to know who bought those sections of wall. And let's keep an eye on where these contracts go to not build a border wall.